There is something your brain wants right now. Maybe you know exactly what it is. Maybe you'd be embarrassed to say it out loud. Maybe it's something you've already given into once today and told yourself it was the last time. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is what happens next. That pull, that itch just beneath the surface, the part of you that knows better and reaches anyway. We all have something we cannot seem to stop. Something we return to when we're bored, when we're stressed, when we're lonely, when the day has taken everything out of us and we just need one more. One more scroll, one more bite, one more look, one more hit of whatever it is that makes the noise go quiet for a minute. And you have probably spent a long time believing that the reason you can't stop is something wrong with you. Your self-control, your willpower, your character. But that belief, that story you have been carrying, is not just wrong. It is the very thing keeping you stuck. Because what is happening inside you in those moments has nothing to do with weakness. It is a precise, well-documented biological mechanism. And once you understand how it actually works, your brain, your urges, and the loop that connects them, you will never see yourself the same way again. We live in a world that was deliberately engineered to hijack your brain. That is not a metaphor. That is not an exaggeration. It is the conclusion of decades of research in behavioral psychology, neuroscience, and product design. For most of human history, the things that felt good were things that kept you alive. Food when you were hungry, rest when you were tired, connection when you were lonely. Your brain evolved a reward system to make sure you kept seeking those things. It is called the dopamine system. And for hundreds of thousands of years, it worked exactly as intended. But here is the problem. That same ancient system built for survival is now being targeted by some of the most sophisticated technology ever created. Technology designed by teams of engineers, psychologists, and data scientists whose entire job is to make sure you cannot look away. Your brain was built for a world that no longer exists. And the mismatch between the brain you have and the environment you are living in is the root of almost everything you are about to hear. To understand why you cannot stop, you need to understand what dopamine actually is. Because most people have it completely wrong. They think dopamine is the pleasure chemical, the reward, the warm feeling of satisfaction after something good happens. But neuroscience has now established something far more interesting. Dopamine is not the reward. Dopamine is the wanting. Researchers at the University of Michigan identified this through decades of study. They call it incentive salience. And here is what it means in plain language. Dopamine does not fire when you get the thing. It fires when you are about to get it. It fires in the anticipation, in the chase, in the moment just before. Think about that carefully. The most powerful hit of dopamine is not when you finish the episode. It is the 3 seconds before the next one starts. It is not when you eat the snack. It is when you open the cupboard. It is not when you find something interesting on your phone. It is the moment you pick it up. Your brain is being flooded with its most compelling chemical, not as a reward for stopping, but as an engine that drives you to keep going. And there is a second mechanism working alongside it. Psychologists call it the habit loop. 3 parts: a cue, a routine, a reward. The cue triggers the craving. The routine is the behavior. The reward teaches the brain to repeat it. Every time you reach for your phone out of boredom, your brain records that sequence. Every time you open a new tab to escape an uncomfortable task, the loop gets etched a little deeper. Over time, the cue alone is enough to trigger the full behavior automatically, before your conscious mind has even made a decision. You are not choosing. You are running a program. Here is where it gets important and honest. Because this is the part nobody tells you. Willpower is not the solution. Not because you are weak, but because willpower and urges are not fighting on equal ground. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational decisions, long-term thinking, and self-control, is slow, deliberate. It requires a significant amount of mental energy to operate. It is the part of you that says, I should really stop now. Your limbic system, the ancient, emotional, survival-driven part of your brain where urges live, is fast, automatic, extremely efficient. It is the part that is already reaching for the phone before your prefrontal cortex has finished the sentence. Research published in 2024 confirms this directly. Controlled, rational behavior centers on the prefrontal cortex. Automatic, habitual behavior runs through a completely different circuit, one that is older, faster, and far less energy expensive. Two systems, same brain, not the same speed. Think of it like this. Your willpower is a thoughtful judge sitting in a courtroom, weighing the evidence, considering the consequences, trying to make the right call. Your urge is a fire alarm going off in the hallway. The judge cannot think clearly when the alarm is screaming. And the louder the alarm, the stronger the craving, the more tired you are, the more stressed or lonely you feel, the harder it becomes for the judge to function at all. This is why urges are always worse at night, after a hard day. When you are drained and the guard is down, the rational system is depleted, the alarm gets louder, and almost every time, the alarm wins. But here is what makes this feel so personal, so shameful, so difficult to admit. When you lose that battle, your brain does not register it as a biological event. It registers it as a moral one. You did not just lose a neurological contest between two systems running at different speeds. You failed. You are weak. You have no discipline. Something is fundamentally wrong with you. And that shame, that story, makes the next urge even harder to resist. Because shame is one of the most powerful triggers for the very behaviors you are trying to escape. You are not trapped in a weakness. You are trapped in a loop. So what does the inside of that loop actually look like? Psychologists have a name for the most dangerous moment in it. They call it the abstinence violation effect. Here is how it plays out in real life. You decide you are going to stop. No more mindless scrolling after 10 at night. No more snacking after dinner. No more falling into 2 hours of videos when you had one thing to watch. And for a few days, it works. Then one night, tired, stressed, defenses down, you do it anyway. And in the moment after, something shifts. Not relief, not real pleasure, something closer to resignation. I already broke it, I might as well carry on. Research shows that single thought, that one sentence, is the most dangerous moment in any attempt to change behavior. Not the slip itself. The story told about the slip, the person who thinks, I slipped, that is human, I begin again tomorrow, has a bad night. The person who thinks, I failed, I always fail, this is just who I am, begins a relapse. The difference is not willpower. It is the narrative. And the loop tightens here, because the shame from that moment becomes the next cue. The discomfort of having failed triggers the urge to escape that discomfort. And the fastest escape the brain knows, the one it already has a program for, is the very behavior you just tried to quit. The trap feeds itself. Here is the part most conversations about this topic miss entirely. Repeated cycles of urge and shame do not just affect your habits, they reshape your identity. Every failed attempt quietly updates your brain's model of who you are. Slowly, without you noticing, a belief gets installed. I am someone who cannot control themselves. And once that belief takes hold, it does something insidious. It makes the behavior feel inevitable, natural, just the way you are. And people do not fight their own nature. Psychologists call this identity-based behavior, and it works in both directions. The person who believes they have no self-control reaches for the phone automatically, not because of the urge alone, but because it is what someone like them does. But the person who begins, even tentatively, even imperfectly, to see themselves differently, starts to make different decisions. So what does working with your brain actually look like? It starts with understanding one thing. The goal is never to eliminate the urge. The urge will come. It is biological. Suppressing it by force is like holding a beach ball underwater. You can manage it for a while, but the moment your arms tire, it launches back harder than before. This is what researchers call the ironic process theory. The harder you try not to think about something, the more mental resources your brain dedicates to monitoring for it. Which means thinking about it more, not less. The approach that actually works has a name. It is called urge surfing. Developed by psychologist Alan Marlatt, the idea is almost frustratingly simple. You do not fight the urge. You observe it. You notice it arriving. You name it quietly. There is the urge. You watch it build because urges always build. Then you watch it peak, because urges always peak. And then, if you do not act on it, you watch it fall. Like a wave. Research confirms that an urge left unacted upon will naturally begin to decline. It does not grow forever, even when it feels that way. You are not trying to destroy the wave. You are learning to stand on the shore and watch it pass. And every time you do, every time you surf instead of drown, your brain quietly updates its model. The urge becomes slightly less automatic. The loop loosens just a little, and the identity slowly begins to shift. Not from weak to strong, from someone fighting their brain to someone who finally understands it. And here is something worth sitting with. If you have spent years feeling like you are losing a battle against yourself, you were never fighting yourself. You were fighting a system designed by some of the smartest people on the planet to be unbeatable. The fact that you are still trying to understand it, still looking for answers, still here, that is not weakness. That is exactly the kind of mind that finds a way through. And if you have ever noticed that the loop gets loudest not when life is hard, but when your mind simply will not stop running long after the moment has passed, turning things over, replaying them, looking for an answer that never quite arrives, that is not a coincidence. There is a specific reason certain minds process the world that way. And science has something quietly remarkable to say about it. If you want to understand why your mind works like that, and why it might not be the flaw you have always assumed, click on this video next.